Bill and Frank's Big Gay Adventure, Round 2. This is a spoiler review, and really, it's just for me to give you my personal thoughts on Episode 3 of The Last of Us Season 1, Long, Long Time. Welcome back, sailors and Starnauts. If you've stayed for my second round, pull up a chair, settle in. I'm going to put this out there. I do myself identify as bisexual. The reason that I'm sharing it with you now, I think it is very important that we start speaking out and calling out the bad behavior among people of our marginalized class. In case you're not detecting the sarcasm there, I'm not marginalized. I'm not a minority. I'm a human being, and this is an aspect of my humanity, which I did not choose, but it is nonetheless the hand that I was dealt in the great cosmic game of poker. What is the bad behavior I'm referring to? Well, dear sailor or Starnaut, let me take you back to the year 2000, to the year 2000. The debate on gay marriage, which I would consider the very last true battleground in LGBT rights. Let's just leave out the T, because that is a totally separate issue that has taken on a insane life of its own right now. And, obviously to any transgender viewers, I don't mean that to be in any way pejorative. I'm just saying in terms of the politics, the T is kind of taken off in its own direction lately, and I'd like to leave that aside. Can we just forget for a minute about the labels lesbian, gay, bisexual, same-sex attraction? Two people of the same biological sex attracted to one another. That is all I'm talking about. And for people who wish to have relationships in accordance with their nature and who they are, that was the last battleground, was gay marriage. And it was being won. And it was being won with, are you ready for this? Democracy. Our republic was succeeding in how it was designed to settle questions like this. States were putting measures on the ballot. Legislators elected by the people in their respective states were voting. People were voting at the polls on their views on this. And in some states, gay marriage was losing. And in other states, it was winning. But on balance, slowly but surely, more and more states were legalizing marriage. Why? Because in a democracy, if you really value democracy, that is what you should have been in support of, because it meant that people were being persuaded. And just in a cultural perspective, my experience of the way the world was about roughly a decade ago, I went through my own coming out journey, and it was extremely hard and it was extremely difficult. And frankly, I was drunk for most of it. I was kind of shocked by the level of actual acceptance and support I got from even people that didn't necessarily agree with, quote, the lifestyle, and I really do hate that label. They did, however, approve of and love me. And that was powerful. So, look, did I get everything I wanted for Christmas? No. But I was surprised to learn that a lot more people than you would think just didn't even care anymore. A lot of people are like, hey, you love who you love. Big deal. That was victory. And then the last legal victory was maybe not as fast as we wanted, but it was being won. And it was in the public square where it belongs. It was being decided by the people, as it should have been. And then an oligarchy of 9 people in black robes took that decision away from the other 350 million people who were making that decision and having that debate. And gay marriage was legalized by the Supreme Court. And it took away the ability of people to be organically persuaded that this was the right thing to do. But it was a victory by force, but a victory nonetheless. But was that enough? Was that enough for the political movement? Of course not, because anyone who's defined their entire existence through anger and injustice and victimhood can never accept victory. They can never take a win. They can never be grateful for what they have. Always there must be more. It is a kind of soul-crushing greed, not of money, but of something else. But it is greed nonetheless. And in the greed that the LGBT movement had, they marched on. and they persisted. And what have they become today? They have become angry, hateful, vicious, cult-like people who are starting to involve children in things they should not be involved in, such as drag shows, which are a sexualized burlesque performance in which children should not be admitted. And they are demanding that people like everything they're doing. We are literally seeing people express sexual fetishes in public. And frankly, it's gross because even if just because you like your fetish doesn't mean I like it and doesn't mean I want to see it. You do you behind closed. Whatever happened to what happens in your bedroom is your business. I'm okay with that, but the problem is the movement. TM is not okay with that. You must like it. You must approve of it. And once we get you to bend the knee to that, we'll make you approve of something even more ludicrous. Well, I oppose all of that crap. Gay, lesbian, and bisexual people have the right to marry. They have the right to adopt. They have equal legal standing in all other matters. That is the most society can deliver for any cause. That is the fairest social contract that can ever be hoped to be achieved. And in the cultural realm, the battle was already won because people just didn't care anymore. But that doesn't please an activist. An activist must always have the next scalp to take. And so on we go. Cancellations, intimidation, censorship of comedians and writers and artists, politicians, everyone. Censorship of everyone. Well, I oppose censorship. I oppose bullying. And the people that were once bullied and had a right to be upset are now the bullies and are now the people that were once oppressed by the religious conservative right have now become their own dark reflection of the oppressive conservative right. They now too demand fealty to a doctrinal belief system. By the way, if you're a conservative Christian, you have your beliefs, you're entitled to those. I am not objecting to that. I disagree with what you believe, and I will oppose any attempt for you to take away my rights. But I will not take away your rights to have your religion and have your belief. And that is what needs to be the position of the modern day LGBT movement. And frankly, the T as well. We need to start taking wins. There's a great line in The Dark Knight Rises. Victory has defeated you. Victory has defeated you, Batman. Well, victory has defeated you, LGBT movement, because you couldn't accept it. And now you are generating literal hatred for the LGBT movement because people are worried about their kids. Good job. So that is why I am speaking out in the way that I am, because it needs to be said. Now, how does that relate to this episode of The Last of Us? Well, I will just say 10 years ago, I don't think there'd be much fuss about this episode. Now, it is part of a video game adaptation, and as I mentioned in my previous video, is this a fair adaptation of the game? I suspect not, even though I don't actually know. But please tell me in the comments if you've played the game what you think about this. Is this a reasonable adaptation of this subplot in the game? I suspect not, given the length of a season and how long this episode was, how much of it was taken up by the story. And so I understand that critique of the show, and I would not disagree with it. But just taking it as its own thing, it was a beautiful story, and it's the kind of story I would like to be told about a romance between two men. I think that it frankly gave me kind of a glimmer of hope that, who wouldn't want a relationship or a love like that? There just isn't a lot of good relationship advice for LGBT people. People in that category mostly have to keep their own counsel. Because society generally in the past has not recognized their cultural position and done much to support them. And that is as it is. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's the reality. So it's nice to see a story that portrays a loving couple and suggests a way that You might build a life, even though you might not fit into the more common categories of human existence. Look, I'm a sucker for a love story, and I get it. A lot of people just aren't into romance stories. I love Titanic. I just loved it. Jack, Jack, they're coming, Jack. I'll live on, Jack. And then she drops him off that floating board, and off he goes into the briny deep. I love a good love story, but I understand a lot of people don't love a good love story, and that's a fair reason to not like this episode to begin with. That being said, if you like a good love story, but you're not too keen on seeing two men in a love story, I get that. Even if you're not in any way opposed to gay romance, I also understand not enjoying seeing it, and that's fair. That's totally reasonable. I have no issue with that. That being said, I would hope, if you're a member of the straight audience, that you would give it a chance, because they have as many problems as a straight couple would have, and the story builds their relationship piece by piece by piece, and there's almost no reference to oppression or their identity or gay culture. There's none of that. It's just they are two people, they happen to be the same sex, they're falling in love. That is it. The rest of it is basically a standard love story, but really what it becomes is a life story. It is a life story because it's about Bill waking up to the beauty of humanity by having this relationship with someone who really completely changes his life. Bill's house is a total reflection of him and his worldview. He's got the guns, he's got all the survival gear, he's also got all of the things he likes, his piano, his cooking materials, his old clock, right? But then, as Frank comes into his life, slowly but surely their lives begin to accumulate new things. Frank's paintings start to appear on the walls. A strawberry garden that Frank planted for Bill appears in the yard. They have new furniture, new things. And by the end of the story, when Joel and Ellie come back into the story, it's kind of amazing as the viewer to see them walking through this life that you have just watched slowly accumulate into what it is. And that is life. That is how life is. It takes you on directions you can't possibly predict. And it was so beautiful. It's so moving for just that reason, leaving the romance out of it. It was just that reason that it was so moving to me. Yeah, am I simping for this episode? I'm simping for this episode, okay? Sue me. Hey, I warned you. Frank begins in his old age to suffer from a degenerative neural condition. It appears to be Parkinson's. Bill, like he has always been, is not willing, played by the magnificent Nick Offerman. I mean, wow, the guy crushed it. And I assume, I don't know, I assume that Nick Offerman is straight. I'm not going to bother to look it up, but I will just say, assuming that he's a straight actor, I am totally okay with him playing a gay character. So if the woke mob comes after him for that, they can just kick rocks. Frank is not enjoying life anymore. And so Frank basically says, hey, I've decided this is my last night. Nick Offerman's performance in this moment just frickin' killed me. Frank is having what will be his last glass of wine. Bill is sitting with him, and Bill suddenly chugs his last glass of wine, and Frank notices how quickly Bill drained that glass, and he says, there were pills crushed up in the bottle, weren't there? And Bill says, in typical Nick Offerman fashion, enough to kill a horse. And it's revealed that they're going to go out together. And Bill has this wonderful line where he says, Frank, you're my purpose. I guess in a perfect world, I would argue that there's a reason to go on. That being said, if I were in their situation, I don't know. If I were in Frank's situation, or Bill's situation, quite frankly, I might have made the same decision. I like the fact that it leaves me conflicted between what I think should or should not be. And I'm not exactly sure. And I think that is what great drama and great art does, is it invites us to consider the things that frankly are not easy to answer within ourselves and are deeply complex and deeply difficult. And that is why this is not a woke episode, because the woke are not capable of this kind of nuance because they already have all the answers. They're fundamentalists. Very much like religious fundamentalists, they are fundamentalists. They know the fundamentals. They've already settled it. The final word has been handed down. And it is our job to agree and or crush all those who are in disagreement, those who are allies, those who are not allies. That is how they see the world, and therefore they are not capable of presenting complex drama, because complex drama implies that you can disagree with something and potentially be wrong, or potentially the person you disagree with could have a good point, even if they're wrong. As someone who has struggled with anxiety and depression, and as I mentioned, I have struggled in the past with my own sexuality, and I would just say it has not been easy at a lot of times. It still isn't, quite frankly. It's not even easy for me to talk about it here. I would prefer to never discuss it, but it's just become such a weapon. It's been so weaponized against people lately that I feel it is necessary for me to speak about this. And so I do. And what I would say is that if you are struggling with something, depression, anxiety, whatever, right, and it's taking you down that dark path, I would just say that my feeling in this episode about these characters, and my feeling about anyone in that position, and my feeling about you, if you find yourself in that position, is that your life has meaning and value and purpose, and there is a reason why you are here. And I know that it's not always easy to see or believe that. It's hard for me sometimes too. But I will just say that if you're watching this, you matter to someone. You matter to a lot of people no matter what, but you certainly matter to me if you're watching. Well, you matter to me whether you're watching it or not. But my point is, if you're here, know that. And so life is worth fighting for, and I hope that in their position I would fight. So if you are an LGBT member of the audience, great episode for us, no doubt about it. And I hope that you will not go with your knee-jerk reaction to people criticizing this episode and assume that it's out of a place of bigotry. Certainly there will be some, there always will be. Acceptance is enough, and it needs to be enough. Tolerance, equality under the law is enough, and it needs to be enough. Demanding that people like you and agree, bend the knee, no. That can never be our desire or our demand. And to the straight members of the audience, I would just say, I hope you don't go with your knee-jerk reaction to this episode and assume that it's woke and assume that it's preaching. Look, the show may descend into woke garbage from this point, but I will just say for this one episode, whatever the motives of the writers, it was a great, well-written episode, and I would hope you would give it a chance. And I do not hold it against you if it just ain't your thing. As always, this is an inclusive, welcoming channel. Swords and Starships, we want everybody here. As long as you love great stories and you're willing and you have opinions and you want to agree or disagree, you are welcome here. And so I say unto you, sailors and Starnauts, this is Swords and Starships. I thank you for listening. Please do like and subscribe. And if you found something valuable in this video, please share it out there. And I will see you out there. Make sure to check out my novel series, Blood and Oak. It's available now on Amazon. It follows the sword and sails adventures of Midshipman John Sullivan. When his sister is kidnapped and sold into slavery by the Barbary pirates, this daring young Navy officer embarks on a suicidal quest for rescue and revenge. It's available now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and a fantastic audiobook narrated by Travis Baldry. I'm not just giving commentary and commenting on the problems in entertainment. I'm doing my best to be part of the solution, and I would be truly honored to earn your readership and your support. Until then, I say hail to you, hail to the fellowship, and hail to the Iron Age of entertainment.